Good evening, councillors and your audience. On the 25th of August, welcome to our Ordinary Council meeting. And I'll head straight over to the CEO, Will Jeremy, for his introduction.
All council meetings are filmed, with both audio and video being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however, audio from the entire room is captured. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is to hold us more accountable and to improve transparency of council's decision-making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. If everyone can please stand for the acknowledgement of country. The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the Taungurung people as the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today. Council also acknowledges all of the traditional owners on the wider lands of the area known as the Alpine Shire. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Thank you. Okay, point 3 on our agenda for tonight is confirmation of the council meeting held on the 28th of July 2026. The recommendation is that the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting held on the 28th of July 2026 as circulated be confirmed. Do I have a mover? And a seconder? Pete.
All those in favour?
So carried unanimously. Apologies. As you no doubt tell, I don't normally chair these meetings. It's normally the Mayor, Sarah Nicholas. She's laid up after having an accident a couple of weeks ago, and I suspect she might be watching, hi Sarah, from her recovery bed. And we also have, unfortunately tonight, we don't have Councillor Tansen. He had things on earlier in the day, and he did send his apologies to saying he'd be late, but we haven't heard from him since. Point 5, obituaries and congratulations, and I'll start on the left. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just one obituary for a very well-known family in the Alpine Shire, the Ellen family. Gwyneth Ellen passed away. She was, Ellen family, as I said, very well-known, but sincere condolences to the family. There was a big send-off there on the weekend. That sort of things. On more positive news is we're entering finals time in local sport with football and netball. So I know Murderford, Bright and I don't think Mount Beauty bar some netball. There's a lot of teams entering finals, so we wish them all the best over the next few weeks in their respective leagues.
Thank you. Councillor Ronco.
Yes, I have for this month 2 congratulations. So the first one is from Bright Local, Matt Palmer and Mika Boyton, who receive international award and recognition at the New Zealand Institute of Professional Photography ARIS Award and Photo Show. So Matt was awarded Travel Photographer of the Year and overall Australian Professional Photographer of the Year. And Mika was awarded Landscape Photographer of the Year. So it's a great achievement for our local and to put a bit the name of Bright and the Alpine Shire from overseas, so that's good. And the second congratulations is also for sport in cycling. So we have Gary Milburn and Fiona Morris from the Alpine Cycling Club, who a couple of weeks ago have been crowned Australian National Cyclocross 2026 champions in their elite category. So congratulations to them and again, we have a good community of sports people, and yep, it's good to see them achieve their goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne.
I'd like to thank Murderford RSL for their commemoration of Vietnam Veterans Day last Tuesday. A very well attended event from all the Shire RSLs. Next year it is Mount Beauty's turn and we look forward to attending there. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson? Nothing for you. I'd also like to follow up Councillor Burns with the RSL. I went representing the Alpine Shire. There was 15 Vietnam veterans there, so that makes their age 80 plus, and it was a good show, probably 60 or 70 people in total in attendance. Number 6, we'll move on to declaration by councillors of a conflict of interest. Councillors? Yeah. Councillor Anderson?
I'll just declare a conflict of interest for the item of the Alpine Children's Services petition, as I am a member of the board of the Alpine Children's Services.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Moving on to number 7, public questions. Questions submitted to the council must be either questions on notice, which must be received by 5 p.m. the day before the meeting in writing, or attendance at the council meeting and asking questions directly to the councillors. 2 questions at a meeting, and I'm sure everyone's aware of what they must and must not relate to. So we have several questions in writing, but they all refer to the childcare, which will be dealt in on 8.2.3. So we're going to hold those questions over and deal with them at the same time as the report on the childcare. So questions without notice from the floor. Mr. Ray Dwyer.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Ray Dyer and I reside at Nug Nug, Buffalo River. Now, I received a letter in my mail today and I got one handed to me when I came to the Shire offices. In regards to the toilets at Centenary Park, it's deemed that those toilets are quite all right. But as I said 4 months ago, I said the taps are that powerful, when you push your hand on it, it splashes all over you and all over the floor. Now that's still happening. The ones in Myrtleford got repaired because they replaced the taps. I don't know whether they replaced the taps or whether they turned the pressure down, but it also, when you put your hand on the taps, it would go off. The ones at Centenary Park at the moment, when you put your hands on the tap and push the button down, as soon as you release the button, which it should flow for about 5 or 6 seconds, well, it doesn't, it goes off straight away. Now, what the problem there is, the pressure is too strong. It splashes water all over you when you put your hand on it and all over the floor. And as I said to you, well, 4 months ago, May, is when I started talking about these situations, and I also said that it is a trip hazard. I also said that it's wasting water because people can't put their hands under it. Now, it was tested and checked and classed as all right, according to Sarah, and I congratulate you, Sarah, for coming to work, especially you've got a hip replacement or something? No, that's someone else, all right. That's the other Sarah, all right. No problem. Anyway, yes, that's the problem. But not only that, in Myrtleford for the last month, I've noticed a lot of toilet paper out the front of the toilets. And that tells me one thing. The contractors don't pick up the papers and everything in the toilets, they just hose them out the door. Now, when I was down at Centenary Park just then and had a look at the taps and they too much pressure, Myrtleford has a policy, it has £100 per square inch at the, in the town water, because I know that from previous with the CFA training. Everybody complained that the pressure at Myrtleford was too great, but it was up to about £100 per square inch. When you have that full power coming out of those taps, water goes everywhere. Now, I'm telling you straight out, that taps at Centenary Park are not working right. You've got to put your hand on it, and it's supposed to run for about 4 or 5 seconds. The way we're going through this summer with fire restrictions and everything else, it could be a bad summer, it could even be a very big drought, what everybody's saying. So it is up to the Shire to do the best they can when it comes to preserving water. And I'd recommend that every toilet block in the Alpine Shire should have taps that turn off and start without leaking and everything else. My second question is, well, I should say, are we going to go another 5 months for these toilets, or are they going to be repaired? And, well, at Centenary Park, I noticed also that there was 2 toilet roll holders, the bottoms, the cores, outside, straight out the door. When I went to Burke Street, when I got into town early this afternoon, there was a cleaner's glove right at the door of the toilet block on the ground, one of the black gloves they used. And just for the record, the contractors in Myrtleford, I was sitting at Rotary Ruby's Milk Bar about 2 months ago. I couldn't say anything last month. This is my second question, because the first question, I hope that the toilets get done. But the contractors were sitting there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon out the front of Ruby's, and the contractors are emptying the bins at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Doesn't go down real good. The bins should be emptied first thing in the morning, the same as the toilet should be cleaned first thing in the morning. So, and it takes 3 contractors to do the one job. I remember back in 90 to 93, when I did the toilets part-time and then full-time, 1 person did that job, not 3. So it tells me there's something going on here, and you can't even get it right. As to you, I said to you, Rill, and I put in writing when the election was on. And my words to you in writing was that the contractors are doing a worse job than the previous contractor is doing. Now, that hasn't changed one bit. And when you go around the Shire, it's time everybody in the Shire looked and opened their eyes, because there's a lot of signs that are skew with and everything else. And the way the roads are, it's absolutely ridiculous. I've never seen roads in my life. All my life I've been around these roads and worked on them for 15 years and had them up to a standard that the Indigo and rural city of Wangaratta commented that the Alpine Shire had the best roads in the district. But now, when it comes to motorbikes, and Gareth, you know exactly what motorbikes are like on roads like this. I mentioned to Will about the street sweeper going around, and I don't know whether he got into O'Donnell Avenue, Lawrence Street, on either side of Lawrence Street there, but there was a lot of loose stone there, and when I go into town next and I check it, and if there's still loose stone there, it never got passed on to the contractor in the street sweeper.
Mr Dyer, can I ask Director Buckley to respond to your 2 questions on
You sure can.
and the bins, if you would like to?
Here, Sarah. That'll make it easier. Hey.
And I'll get, thanks, Todd. Thank you, Mr Dyer. As you mentioned, we took your requests seriously. and we've provided you with a letter, which you also mentioned. Jubilee Park toilets were inspected and the defective taps were rectified on the 14th of August 2026. In relation to Centenary Park on the 6th of July 2026, an inspection was undertaken and the responsible officer for doing that inspection reported that the taps were operating correctly and no works were required. Following the July Ordinary Council meeting, I asked for a subsequent inspection just to check and sent a different officer out on the 3rd of August. That responsible officer also confirmed that all taps were functioning properly and no remedial works were necessary. So based on the inspections we've conducted, we believe that all taps are now working and have been rectified. In relation to toilets and garbage bins, I'll take that on notice because they're collected at specific times of the day and the toilets are cleaned at specific times of the day in accordance with the contract. Don't have the contract in front of me at the moment. And it's also not for us to prescribe how they work on a specific asset. We ask it to meet a specific standard based on the time of day.
Thank you, Director Buckley. May I ask you a question, Mr Dyer? You're referring to Centenary Park. Are we all talking of the same location, or are the toilets you're talking about different to the ones that Director Buckley's? Where the rotary slide? Right. Okay, thank you.
And if you go there, you'll see that the water pressure is very strong. When you push the tap down, it doesn't start watering before it comes out.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
as soon as you lift your hand off the
yes,
tap,
yes, we got
it
that.
stops.
We got that. Thank you.
That is not working properly. I'm sorry to say.
Okay. Thank you, Mr Dyer.
Hopefully next month we'll have a nice meeting.
We'll move on to Section 8, report of...
Are there any further questions?
Oh, sorry. Is there any further questions from the floor? Mary shook her head before. Presentation of reports by officers, 8.1, Mr Jeremy as the CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Graham. So this report is contracts approved under delegation by the CEO. So just to remind our viewers today, Council has delegated approval to the CEO up to a value of $200,000 plus GST. So I can approve contracts under delegation to that amount, and anything beyond that requires a Council decision. So this month I'm reporting that one capital project contract has been approved under my delegation, and that's as noted in the Council report. The title is the Mountain View Children's Centre Consultant, and the successful tenderer was Spaces Proprietary Limited from St Kilda. $2.53 million has been included in the adopted council budget for 26-27 for progressing the Mountain View Children's Centre project, and this has been fully funded by a grant from the Victorian School Building Authority, so that's the Victorian State Government. And of this amount, a nominal allocation of $190,000 was identified for this specific contract, which is to progress design documentation to a full construction status. Contract value as awarded under my delegation was $186,553.50.
Thank you, Mr Jeremy. So the recommendation is put forward that the capital project contract approved under delegation by the CEO be noted. Report moved by Councillor Byrne and seconded Councillor Councillor Anderson. Okay. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Any comments to add to that? Anyone? No? Thank you.
I would like, last month I think I forgot to thanks the Victoria government for the funding to this important and valuable asset in our community. So I just wanted to remind that thanks again for the Victoria government. I think it's the biggest funding that the Alpine Chair received, so close a bit more than that million. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see the achievements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rongo. Anyone else? Councillor Anderson?
Just for the Myrtleford communities looking forward to the construction of this project, what's the estimated completion date?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. The estimated date to open the childcare centre after construction is complete is January 2028, in accordance with the grant funding agreement, and in addition to that, to ensure that the service can run after the summer period and construction will be complete.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Sorry.
Excuse me, Councillor.
Yes, Mr. Dyer.
Just on the funding,
Really quickly.
when I first come into the council meeting, the CEO had a budget of $50,000 for contracts. Now, this is $200,000. You can do it or don't do it without going through a shop officially. Now, is that every month? He can do the contract for $200,000?
It's per contract, I believe.
Contract every month,
Every week?
every week,
Yeah.
without going through the council.
It comes to us for approval.
But here's the last say. That's a lot of money, especially when it was only 60,000 a few years back.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not taken willy-nilly and just sprayed around the countryside to anyone. Okay, 8.2.1, Director Assets, Ms Buckley, Back Pulpunka Road Strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. 8.2.1, Back Pulpunka Road Safety Strategy. The Back Pulpunka Road Safety Strategy 2026 is a safety strategy for the Back Pulpunka Road, which connects the townships of Bright and Pulpunka. This report recommends that Council notes the feedback received from the draft community consultation process and adopts the strategy. The Back Pulpunka Road is a key secondary connector between Bright and Pulpunka that serves as an alternative route to the Great Alpine Road. It services approximately 1,970 to 2,200 vehicle movements per day and is a thoroughfare for cyclist movements between the townships. Back Pulpunka Road has had 4 incidents between 2014 and 2024 of a sufficient size to be recorded by the Transport Accident Commission, the TAC, including 1 between a motor vehicle and a cyclist. The Alpine Shire Council received a grant of $13,500 under the TAC Local Government Grants Analysis Stream to prepare the Back Pulpunka Road Safety Strategy. The objectives of the strategy are to assess the Back Pulpunka Road and its alignment and safety system principles, document concerns to align with these principles, identify recommendations that will produce or move Back Pulpunka Road towards a safe system outcome. At the Ordinary Council meeting on 29th of July 2025, Council resolved to endorse the Back Pulpunka Road Safety Strategy for community consultation. A bit about the consultation process. Council officers undertook community consultation on the Back Pulpunka Road strategy for a period of 4 weeks, and the dates are listed in the report. 401 responses were received. The details of the community consultation process and responses from the community can be found in the Back Pulpunka Road Safety Strategy Community Engagement Report, August 2026, in Attachment 1. There were a number of changes post-community consultation, and I'm going to paraphrase. The full detail is in the report. The first change was in relation to safer roads, which was shoulder widening. amended recommendation recommending that the width of the shoulders along the back Porpunka Road from a minimum of 2 metres to 1.5. The new recommendation is to investigate the preferred location for a new or upgraded, the new recommendation is to create a minimum of 1.5 metres and a desirable minimum of 0.5 metres in constrained locations in Bright. Another new recommendation, which was to investigate the use of virtual wildlife fencing, particularly at the Kenyon Corner. Further amendments were for safer speeds. The change was to reduce, the amended recommendation was to reduce the speed limit to a certain section of the back Porpunka Road from Showers Avenue to Porpunka side of Kenyon Corner. And this would leave 80 km/h speed limit on the straighter sections of the back Porpunka Road. Other minor changes was to introduce updated cyclist advisory signs on the back Porpunka Road and to introduce user educational signage at the entrance to the rail trail at Porpunka. A significant number of recommendations within the strategy are subject to future investigation. This will be considered as part of the inclusion of these recommendations in Council's future project prioritisation program. Council maintains a 12-year project prioritisation program that outlines key improvements to infrastructure, streetscapes and public spaces. The final strategy can be found as part of attachment 2 attached to this report. It's worth mentioning the financial and resource implications. The strategy, as I mentioned, was funded by the TAC's local government grant program. The actual recommendations of this report will not result in immediate financial implications as the strategy does not allocate capital costs to the project as yet. Recommendations identified in the strategy can be considered for inclusion in Council's future project prioritisation program. These recommendations may be expedited if grant funding from the Australian or Victorian governments become available that's relevant. Details of the community consultation undertaken are in the report at a high level: 564 letters to landowners in Porpunka, a media release, information on Council's Engage page and a drop-in session in Porpunka at Riverside Park. The final back Porpunka Road safety strategy is now ready for Council's consideration. Therefore, this evening it is recommended that Council receives and notes the back Porpunka Road safety strategy community engagement report August 2026 and adopts the back Porpunka Road safety strategy 2026.
Thank you, Director Buckley. Do we have someone to move the report as received? Officer Ronco, Officer. Okay, Councillor. Councillor Smith, yes, sorry. Councillor Ronco.
Yep, thank you. It's a very great strategy and report, very good to read. So I was happy to note that heavy vehicle and stacking flow has been recognized on this document as part of the recommendation. So it was very good to notice that. But I'm always agree with heavy vehicle and the traffic flow, so it was good. I note also that this survey has been done in the month of January. So I wish that this study was conducted seasonally. The traffic change a lot depending on tourism, weather and seasonality. For example, one of the busiest time around Bright is in autumn, and a lot of visitors and drivers are pulling out frequently on the roadside to capture the beauty of our valley, especially the autumn leaves on the trees. One of their favorite spots is located along back Porpunka Road. So I believe that this fact will be considered in the future when we will move to the next phase of action following this strategy. Could the Director of Asset confirm that that will be investigated in the future?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. There isn't any immediate plans, as you've alluded to, for a further survey at the moment. Council officers have noted that this is a problem across many sections of road in the Shire. This would require a further larger study of survey points across different points in the Shire. It's not currently on our officers' work program, but if it was to become a priority against other safety priorities into the future, we would need to conduct surveys along those points. It's just not planned in the imminent future, but could be something in the longer term.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, this is a really good piece of work. And I think just the feedback, 401 responses is a really pleasing for the community to give that feedback. Everyone gets bombarded with surveys and things, but I think 401 is a good result feedback, so well done. Good stuff.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Anderson?
It's good to see that we've had so many responses. Clearly for people in the area, it's an important sort of road. Just on that, what are some of the actions and the strategy that people might see happening first? So what's the earliest we can see some of the strategy actions taking place?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. You'll note that in the strategy we've placed priorities next to the different actions. A lot of the priorities that are larger are dependent upon grant funding. Some of the smaller initiatives that we can achieve after further investigations would be the speed change as well as Wombat crossings, because they're fairly achievable. There's other larger items such as lighting that are a lot harder and more expensive. We would hope to see that some of the smaller items might be able to be achieved if they're put forward for consideration in the next council budget. In relation to the speed limit change, that's something we can put forward immediately if this is adopted this evening. However, that's a very long process. Council officers submit it to a traffic liaison committee. It then either gets approval at that committee or not. If it gets approval, it goes through to Department of Transport, and that process can take anywhere from 9 months to a few years, depending on their priorities across the state. So we can make that submission straight to the TLC if this strategy is adopted this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors need to speak? Take it to the vote to approve the recommendation. It's carried. (8.2.2) Draft Visual Media Activity on Council Land Policy 2026. Director Buckley.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. 8.2.2. The draft visual media activity on Council Land Policy 2026 aims to provide a framework and resource for visual media makers seeking approval for permits to produce visual media on public land with the jurisdiction of Alpine Shire Council. The draft policy will replace the largely informal documentation currently used to assess visual media applications. Alpine Shire hosts many visual media projects owing to its natural beauty. These projects vary from commercial movies, advertisers, documentaries to student projects. Council has an established reputation with Vic Screen, which is the Victorian Government's creative and economic screen development agency, providing support to visual media projects within the Shire. The main issues that have been identified that a final policy may address are the need to balance residential business and visual media industry needs and interests, minimise risk of litigation and insurance claims for council and increase protection for council's reputation, and reduction of multiple events competing for the same space. The financial and resource implications. Support for the draft policy will have minimal implications on council's resources. The time to support and process applications is already delivered by the economic development team. in its existing resources, and the draft policy simply formalises the existing considerations. The risk management table has been included in this report. It's worth mentioning that targeted stakeholder engagement occurred with Vic Screen in the development of the draft policy. Council officers are proposing to undertake community consultation for a 4-week period, and this will be done through Engage Alpine and hard copies available for viewing during opening hours at Council office in Bright and the libraries in Mount Beauty and Myrtleford. Therefore, this evening it is recommended that Council endorses the draft visual media activity on Council Land Policy 2026, endorses an engagement process to seek community feedback on the draft visual media activity on Council Land Policy, and notes that Council officers will consider community feedback and report back to Council at a future Council meeting.
Thank you, Director Buckley. Do I have a mover to accept this recommendation? Councillor Byrne. Look to the left, look to the right. Councillor Anderson. Officer Byrne. I'm going to call you an officer all night. Councillor Byrne.
Quick question. Was this draft policy produced in-house, or was a contractor employed to write the draft?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. This policy was completed in-house, and Vic Screen actually supplied us with a template policy as well for us to utilise, so all done with in-house, no cost of contractors.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, nothing further? Any other wishing to speak? We'll take this to the vote. All those in favour of accepting the recommendation? It's carried. Now we move on to 8.2.3, which is the childcare matter, and Councillor Anderson will be leaving us. He's departing us at 5:36. Any more? Just had a little conflab there. So the petition Alpine Shire Council to review its current approach to childcare service in our shire. I'm going to ask Director Buckley to go through her policy recommendations first, and then we'll deal with the questions on notice that were received.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. This report relates to a petition seeking a review of Council's current support of childcare services in the Alpine Shire. It is quite a significant report, so I will do my best to do the petition and the responses justice whilst summarising. The following petition titled Alpine Shire Council to review its current approach to childcare services in our shire was received at the ordinary council meeting held in June 2026, and the details can be found within the report. The petition contains 78 signatures with 62 signatories from within and 16 from outside of the Alpine Shire or not noted on the petition. In response to the petition, council officers provide the following responses to concerns raised. A, the concern is review the exclusive childcare lease arrangement currently in place. The response in summary: at the OCM held in May 2026, Council resolved to lease 3 premises in Bright, Mount Beauty and Myrtleford to Alpine Children's Services. The following childcare facilities are housed at these premises: Alpine Children's Services in Bright, Lakeview Children's Centre in Mount Beauty and Mountain View Children's Centre in Myrtleford. Before entering into negotiations for these 3 agreements, council officers undertook a high-level review of the importance of providing childcare services in the Alpine Shire, current arrangement in neighbouring municipalities, whether other councils provided any support for the provision of childcare services, etc. Following this, Council issued a notice of intent to negotiate directly and published this in local newspapers and on social media. The lease agreements require Alpine Children's Services to pay rent for each of the 3 premises at the community rate within the adopted budget 26-27 of $283.50 per annum. This is a significantly discounted commercial market rent that forgoes earning a commercial rate on the 3 premises, which assists in realising accessible childcare facilities in the 3 main towns in the Alpine Shire. The discounted rate is provided under provision that Alpine Children's Services allows the operation of the maternal, child and health and immunisation services for each premises. This includes access to a room, shared kitchen and toilet facilities and the cleaning of that room. Council retains the right to adjust to a full commercial market rent should Alpine Children's Services statement of purpose be substantially amended to change the nature and operation of this not-for-profit childcare provider. A discounted rental arrangement for a not-for-profit childcare provider delivers greater community benefits by enabling funds to be directed towards service delivery, staffing and facility improvements rather than generating profit for commercial operator. Finally, council officers are unaware of any other childcare providers wishing to provide childcare services in the Alpine Shire. Currently, there was no response received to the notice of intent to negotiate directly that council published in local newspapers and on its social media. Part B request, provide greater transparency about how childcare service decisions are made. Council's response in summary, it is council officers' view that the relationship and support for Alpine Children's Services are transparent and clear. All processes have complied with the provisions of the Local Government Act 2020 in relation to leasing land and council's standard processes. Operational and management decisions relating to the service are the responsibility of Alpine Children's Services and its governing board, not council. Council officers are of the view the Alpine Shire is fortunate to have such a professional and skilled childcare provider, which is a not-for-profit organisation that can provide childcare services across Alpine Shire at a reduced rate owing to council support. Item C, requested, explore opportunities for additional childcare providers to operate in the Alpine Shire. The response in summary, the current arrangements do not preclude other childcare providers from operating within the Alpine Shire. Opportunities remain available for additional providers to establish services subject to market demand and compliance with relevant regulatory and planning requirements. Family daycare has not shown to be viable in the past, viable alternative in Alpine Shire. Alpine Children's Services operated family daycare for several years and ultimately determined that the model was not financially or operationally sustainable. Item D, requested for response, prioritise affordability, accessibility and quality in future childcare planning. The Alpine Shire Council Community Infrastructure Needs Assessment 2026, the CINA, which was adopted by Council at an OCM held in July, provides a strategic framework for community and social infrastructure planning. The CINA does not specifically recommend changes to the current childcare lease arrangements or recommend that Council seeks alternative childcare providers, but it does identify the importance of providing childcare services across the Shire. It assessed future demand, access, capacity and service provisions across Alpine Shire, the viability of other childcare service providers establishing childcare services in the Shire, and the CINA determined that Council should continue to support the continued operation of Alpine Children's Services via use of Council early years facilities and workforce planning. Council's commitment to affordable, quality, accessible childcare extends to investing in upgraded and expanded services demonstrated by the Victorian Government's recent $9,639,000 grant for the redevelopment of Mountain View Children's Centre in Myrtleford. Overall, Council's continued support for a community-based, not-for-profit childcare provider aligns with the objectives of its adopted strategies and the Council Plan 2025 to 2029. It's worth noting a few issues. Changes to the childcare provision. The Victorian Government has implemented significant changes to childcare provision in recent years. The growth in Victoria's long daycare sector is overwhelmingly being addressed by the private sector. The recent Child Safety Review found that 769 new long day services opened since 2015. 726 were for profit. This means approximately 94% of new growth came from the profit sector. They're referring to the risk management that's noted in the report. There is a risk that Alpine Children's Services, if substantially amended to change their nature and operation of the company, Council would move to retain the right to adjust to a full commercial market rent for the three premises, and this is included in the detail of the lease. Therefore, this evening, it is recommended that Council notes the petition with the title listed in the report, recognises the impact that the recent increase to childcare costs has had on our communities, notes Council officers' responses to the concerns raised in the petition, thanks the proponent of the petition and all of those who have signed the petition, and thanks Alpine Children's Services for the important services that it provides to the communities of the Alpine Shire.
Thank you, Director Buckley. Do we have someone to move we accept the recommendation?
Could I make a recommendation? Do questions on notice?
Question first.
And then, because Council may want to consider the responses as they go through. And then we'll...
Okay, if you didn't hear that, we're actually going to do the questions first. Questions that came through on notice, because that may alter the acceptance of the recommendation. So I have several pages in front of me, so this is going to become quite a long-winded. The first question, and some of these questions were quite long, and what we've actually done is separated them into shorter questions. So Kate McDonald came to see us the other day, and she's put in questions. In responding to this petition, what direct community consultation has Council undertaken with current and prospective families to determine whether long day care in Alpine Shire is affordable, accessible and meeting the diverse needs of our community?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. In responding to this petition, Council has not undertaken any direct community consultation with current or prospective families.
Thank you. Okay, question 2. If no such consultation has been undertaken, will Council commit to conducting meaningful community consultation before making further decisions regarding this petition and Council's supported childcare provision?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Council officers do not recommend community consultation or any further action in relation to this petition. Council officers are focused on delivering on priorities which have been established by Council and are contained within the adopted Council Plan 2025 to 2029. This plan was developed with significant community input, including deliberative engagement with a panel of volunteer community members. Through this engagement process, known concerns about ageing facilities and capacity constraints within Myrtleford Mountain View Children's Centre were highlighted as a priority for Council to address, as this was impacting on access to the service and the quality of service that was able to be provided to the families. As a result, redevelopment of the Mountain View Children's Centre was listed as a major initiative and a high priority capital project in the Council Plan. Beyond the limitations of the Myrtleford Mountain View Children's Centre, the community did not raise concerns in relation to other aspects of childcare provision in the Alpine Shire. In particular, no concerns were raised about choice and diversity of service models. Through a multi-year process of engagement with and advocacy to the Victorian Government, Council has recently secured a significant commitment of grant funding to enable an upgrade to the Children's Centre in Myrtleford, which I mentioned in the report earlier. in order to renew the facilities and align capacity with forecast increases in demand. Council officers' focus at this point is on ensuring the successful delivery of this critical project for the community, aligned with the direction provided through the council plan in order to improve access to childcare services for the community.
Thank you. The council states that it is unaware of any other childcare providers wishing to provide services in Alpine Shire, and that no response was received to its notice of intent to negotiate directly. So the question is, does council consider the absence of an expression of interest from another provider to be sufficient evidence that there is no community demand for greater choice in long day care?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Council officers have not made any assumption about a link between the absence of an expression of interest and community demand for greater choice in long day care.
Okay. If so, why has council not directly consulted families to establish whether such demand exists?
And this is not applicable based on the previous answer.
Thank you. Will council investigate those barriers and consider whether there are actions council could take to help support greater diversity, choice and accessibility in childcare services across our community?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. As noted in the response above, council officers are focusing on delivering the key priorities and initiatives in the adopted Council Plan 2025 to 29 and its associated action plan, of which the Myrtleford Mountain View Children's Centre redevelopment is the only notable example which relates directly to childcare service provision. Council officers do not recommend further action in relation to the topics addressed in this petition.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now I think this is just a comment, not a question. It may be that through direct engagement with the community, council finds there is a need or demand for alternative models of care, such as family day care. If there is potential demand for alternative providers, I would ask council to investigate what barriers prospective providers are experiencing that prevent them from entering the Alpine Shire market, including barriers to establish family day care or other long day care models. I believe this would provide council with a more complete understanding of what families actually need, rather than relying on whether another provider has independently approached the council. And I thank Kate McDonald for her list of questions, and I hope we've been able to answer most of them. Submitter number 2, Ben Robinson. Question 1. What recent, in the last 6 months, research has council undertaken to determine the level of market demand for additional long day care or alternative childcare services within the Alpine Shire, including direct consultation with families who currently use childcare, families on waiting lists, families who have reduced or ceased care, and families who cannot currently access care due to affordability or availability?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Council has not undertaken any research in the last 6 months to determine the level of market demand for additional long day care or alternative childcare services within the Alpine Shire.
Has council undertaken any recent market testing or sought information from other childcare providers to determine whether another not-for-profit, community-based or commercial provider could deliver long day care within the Alpine Shire while providing equal or greater benefits in affordability, accessibility, capacity or service diversity?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Beyond the high-level review which is noted in the council meeting agenda report, council has not undertaken any recent market testing or sought information directly from other childcare providers.
Okay. If not, on what evidence has council concluded that the current arrangements provides the best available community benefit?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Alpine Children's Services has an established history of delivering high-quality, early childhood education and care services across the Alpine Shire. The benefits associated with a quality childcare service are typically realised over an extended period and are demonstrated through consistent service delivery, stable staffing, positive family relationships, community trust, regulatory compliance and strong educational outcomes for children. Council's decision in relation to the lease arrangement was based on this demonstrated performance and capability of the existing provider. The value of maintaining continuity of service for families and children and the lack of market response to the recent notice of intent to negotiate directly with the incumbent operator.
Thank you, Director Buckley. And thank you, Ben Robinson. Submitted number 3, Niels Johan Björk. I understand that a recent petition was provided to Council on the 30th of June 2026 meeting regarding childcare services in the Shire. In the agenda for the meeting the 25th of August, today, Council foreshadows a response to the petition. Given this response to the widely signed petition, I wish to provide the following questions on notice to Council. In 2025, Alpine Children's Services very publicly tried and failed to take on the operation of several kindergartens outside the Alpine Shire, namely Beechworth Kinder and the Leneva Kinder. Is Council support and funding of these challenging and resource-heavy attempted expansion activities outside of the Shire, including by means of the reduced rent with the proper scope or of subsidisation that Council expects in its engagement with ACS?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I might let you read out the second question because the response is responding to both.
Okay. Council, in its draft agenda response to the community petition, suggests that its priorities in charging reduced rent to the Alpine Children's Services are to support accessible childcare and positive outcomes for children and families. Given that in the period December 2024 till April 2026, one full daycare rate ACS increased from $126 to $199 per day, sitting far above the average Melbourne infant care, including across for-profit centres, of $169 per day. And he's provided us with a reference. Number 2, executive pay of ACS2 executives increased by $60,000 in 1 year, from $325,000 to $384,101. Again, as a reference. Number 3, ACS failed to obtain the worker retention payment to subsidise its educator employment costs, which is a federal government incentive specifically targeted to salary cost pressures and would have reduced the above-mentioned burden on families. Point 4, the ACQA score of the Alpine View Centre upon 2025 inspection decreased against its previous results and now does not exceed the bare standard on any single measure. Does Alpine Shire wish to reconsider the draft agenda suggestion that provision of reduced rent and no other quality or standard expectations and the Council appointment of 2 paid employees to the ACS board with expressly no responsibility or expectations is achieving accessible childcare positive outcomes for children in the Alpine Shire? As a local family committed to high quality early education for our children, thank you for your response.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Council acknowledges the concerns raised in both questions regarding the operational activities of Alpine Children's Services. However, ACS is an independent organisation and Council is not responsible for its day-to-day operational decisions. As Council is not involved in these matters, it is not appropriate for Council officers to comment on or direct the organisation's operational activities. Community members wishing to raise concerns or seek further information are encouraged to engage directly with Alpine Children's Services.
Thank you, and thank you for submitting your questions, Niels. Submitter 4, Jessica Pitt. I wish to pose 2 narrow questions. Could Council please share with the community what factors led to Council's own determination that the services provided by Alpine Children's Services are of high quality, as excellent or exceeding overall rating at a greater level of detail? Alpine View and Lakeview Children's Centres have an ACECQA rating of meeting standard on all 7 points, and Mountain View has a rating of meeting standard against 6 out of 7 points, with an exceeding rating against 1 point only. Upon consideration, this would rather suggest that ACS is meeting base requirements and is of a regulatorily acceptable standard. The community would appreciate understanding in further detail what information Council has gathered in order to make this admirable finding.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Through the engagement processes during the preparation of the council plan and anecdotal community feedback on a variety of different initiatives prior to the price increase, feedback received was consistently positive, stating that Alpine Children's Services provided a high-quality service and families were pleased with the service provided.
Thank you. Question 2. Could Council please detail its lease relationship with ACS, with particular regard to the bearing of maintenance and repair costs for the leased premises, and reflected upon whether Council considers this to be a standard landlord-tenant allocation of cost responsibility?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Council does consider it to be a standard landlord-tenant allocation. Maintenance is in line with Council's current policy number 56, Building Facility Maintenance Policy. This may be updated from time to time. Officers consider this standard landlord-tenant obligation in line with other council leased properties. In summary, major maintenance is usually a council responsibility, and tenant, in this case Alpine Children's Services, are responsible for minor maintenance. It's worth noting that the childcare centres has the operation of maternal health and immunisations within the facility, as I mentioned in the report. And also to reflect again that Alpine Shire Council retains the right to adjust to a market rent should the statement of purpose be substantially amended to change the nature and operation of the incorporated association within the future.
Thank you, Officer Buckley. And thank you, Jessica Pitt, for your questions. That brings us to the end of the questions regarding the Alpine Children's Service. So we then go back to the recommendation of the officers' reports and ask for a mover. Councillor Smith, and seconded Councillor Byrne. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks to the residents for those questions. This is a huge issue. Cost of living is affecting so many people, and we're not just privy to this, it's our residents. So we fully understand, and I know full well a lot of people are hurting the cost of this, but I think it's a separate business, but we still need to, as councillors, I know I'd like to contact the board and how we can work, how we can find a way to make it more cost effective for the average family. I know it's a separate entity but I still think getting a response and hearing how people, the frustration of the community, we've still got a responsibility to try and work with this board, how we can help them or just have a briefing from them, and that they are listening to these complaints and these frustrations of our residents and our families. So I think, there's a lot of questions in there. There's a lot of, but I think we've still got an obligation as councillors to work and try and help people, how we can make cost less, but there's so much involved in this. But I know I'd be pushing to try and get a resolution on how we can help our residents in our community with the cost of putting their kids into childcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Byrne?
I'd like to agree with Councillor Smith's comments and would like to ask Will Jeremy, is it possible to write to the board of ACS seeking some answers to the questions of why the fees have become what they are? Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Byrne, thank you, Councillor Smith. I'm very happy to support the Alpine Shire councillors as council to write to the board. I think it's more appropriate that the letter is sent from the Alpine Shire councillors than from the officers directly to the ACS board. But yeah, very, very happy to help you prepare that. My reflection on the situation is that the fee increase has translated into reduced accessibility for our residents. That's been the direct result of the fee increase. I'd share Director Buckley's feedback that prior to this fee increase, we were only hearing positive feedback about the service with the exception of the shortage of spaces. So what's turned from a problem of capacity has turned into a problem of high fees and is impacting on the accessibility for our families in the Alpine Shire. So yes, absolutely happy to support councillors in their preparation of a letter to seek some clarity from the Board of ACS.
Thank you, Mr Jeremy. Any other councillors?
Yes, I'm happy with Peter's comment and also Councillor Byrne and with Jeremy. And yeah, it's very important, and as Peter says, so we are all affected by cost of living, and we understand the family of residents who are affected also by the cost of living, and yeah, so I think it's a good way forward. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. I would also like to add similar comments. It's a really emotive area that we're dealing with, and we've probably all had people come to us with similar sort of problems, and people are having to reduce the amount of care hours they're having because of the costs. On a personal note, I'm much too old for that, but my daughters aren't. They're going through the similar sort of problem. So we put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation? That would be carried. Should we invite Councillor Anderson back, or is he...
Get the time right.
We'll invite him back at 6:07. So 31 minutes he's missed out on. And luckily we still had a quorum. Yeah, welcome back. We move on to 8.2.4, digital connectivity in the Alpine Shire. Director Buckley.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Digital connectivity in Alpine Shire. The purpose of this report is to note actions being undertaken to address capacity issues related to mobile telecommunications services within the Alpine Shire. Mobile phone connectivity within the Alpine Shire is severely overloaded during times of peak visitor numbers. This is inconvenient to residents and visitors, impacts the operations of businesses and significantly inhibits communications, particularly problematic during emergencies. At the Ordinary Council meeting held in December 2022, Council noted the Alpine Shire Telecommunications Strategy as a technical document that informs future advocacy initiatives. The 2022 strategy was funded through the Australian Government's disaster recovery funding arrangements and the Victorian Government's response to Black Summer bushfires from 2019 to 2020. The purpose of the strategy is listed in the report. 18 actions were identified as being required to ensure adequate services are realised across the Shire. A recent review of these actions identified that majority of them had been completed, except for critical infrastructure upgrade gaps in coverage at Dedorang, Gundowring, Happy Valley and Wandilligong still remaining. In 2025, it was recognised that the mobile telecommunications were still significantly lacking and that the carriers may not have invested sufficiently to resolve known coverage deficiencies. As such, Council undertook a range of workshops that are listed in the report. Council engaged Core Holdings Pty Ltd to summarise the current challenges and to consider options available to best manage under-servicing of the region during peak demand. This was considered in the development of the Mobile Internet Adapting to Alpine Valley Capacity Issues and Beyond 2025 report, which serves as both an advocacy document for future infrastructure upgrades and an interim approach to reduce the impact that a lack of mobile telecommunication services had. The key issues in the report, and I paraphrase, are around capacity and coverage, single point vulnerability in Bright, rising device load, insufficient short-term rental connectivity and inadequate public Wi-Fi. The report recommends a range of actions under the following key headings: add, enhance permanent mobile telecommunications, add and enhance seasonal mobile telecommunications, reduce reliance on mobile telecommunications through the provision of Wi-Fi enhanced connections to NBN, and short-term rental accommodation, finding ways to upgrade Wi-Fi, short-term rental accommodation and caravan parks. A detailed action plan is included as attachment 2 in the report. Note that this action plan supersedes any actions noted in the report attachment 1. The action plan was developed alongside the report during the 2025 financial year. All initiatives included in the action plan except 3 were undertaken or completed. The action plan includes 3 actions that extend beyond the 25-26 financial year, and these actions are unfunded and would require future advocacy and or identification of external funding opportunities, and they are listed in the report. While no additional budget is currently proposed, further scoping, advocacy and project development work may be required. As I just mentioned, 3 action items are unfunded. These items will inform Council's future advocacy activities and will not be undertaken unless external funding sources can actually be identified. The project included during the development of the report in consultation with several stakeholders that are also listed in the report. Council is recommended to note the status of the findings and recommendations of this strategy 2022 and to receive and note the Mobile Internet Adapting to Alpine Capacity Issues and Beyond 2025. These 2 documents will inform Council's future advocacy for upgrades to telecommunications infrastructure in Bright, Porepunkah and other underserviced areas. Therefore, this evening it is recommended that Council notes that the findings and recommendations of the Alpine Shire Telecommunications Strategy 2022 have either been completed, superseded or incorporated into the updated action plan, receives and notes the Mobile Internet Adapting to Alpine Valley Capacity Issues and Beyond 2025 report and the accompanying action plan, and continues to advocate for improved coverage and capacity in accordance with the Alpine Shire Council Plan 2025 to 2029.
Thank you, Director Buckley. Would someone like to move we accept the recommendation? Councillor Byrne?
Nothing to add, thank you.
And seconded, Councillor Ronco? Anything to?
Just, I think you already answered the question that I had, but yeah, so I found this report very right answer and focus. But yeah, few gaps in coverage have been review in Dedorang, Gundowring, and Happy Valley and Wandilligong still remaining, because I was seeking if we also other part of the Shire where we have the same digital connectivity challenges. So thanks.
Thank you, councillor Ronco.
Any other councillors wish to speak on the motion? Okay, we'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, carried unanimously. 8.2.5, this is the last report for Director Buckley. Alpine Shire Sporting Reserve Maintenance Support Policy 2026.
Thank you, councillor Graham. 8.2.5. The Sporting Reserves Maintenance Support Policy 2026 aims to provide an equitable allocation of resources to the sporting reserves managed by committees of management appointed by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, DECA, or community asset committees appointed by Alpine Shire Council. The funding arrangements and maintenance responsibilities for sporting reserves across the Alpine Shire are currently guided by the Building Facilities Maintenance Policy 56, which was adopted at an ordinary council meeting on the 13th of December 2005. This policy includes two key components, both sporting and recreation ground maintenance and building maintenance. A new policy, the Alpine Shire Sporting Reserves Maintenance Policy Support Policy 2026, was developed to specifically review and update the sporting and recreation ground maintenance component. The building maintenance policy component is currently also under review. A draft of this policy is expected to be considered by Council in late 2026. Several issues have emerged under the existing framework, and they include inequities in funding distribution, the need to reassess funding levels, and Council's desire to introduce greater accountability for reserve committees regarding the use of annual maintenance grants. The policy will ensure funding is distributed fairly and consistently. It will promote transparency and accountability. It will strengthen reserve committee confidence. It will clearly document Council's level of support and provide a policy framework that reflects the current needs and expectations of the reserve committees. A bit on financial and resource implications. Support for the policy will remain subject to Council's annual budget process. Funding to reserve payments has been included in the adopted 2026-27 budget. Each reserve will be required to submit a yearly application and acquittal form to be eligible for funding. The risk matrix table has been included in the report. It's worth mentioning that Council completed targeted stakeholder engagement with relevant stakeholders, and it was conducted in April 2026. At the ordinary Council meeting held on the 26th of May 2026, Council resolved to endorse a community consultation process to seek feedback on the draft policy. Council officers received 2 submissions to the draft policy from this community consultation process. A summary of each submission is provided in the report in a table. Council officers have made one minor change to the policy that will not impact on any committees included in the policy itself. All submissions have been considered and the final policy is ready for Council's consideration. Therefore, this evening it is recommended that Council receives and notes the feedback from the community provided during the draft community consultation process as outlined in this report and adopts the Alpine Shire Sporting Reserves Maintenance Policy 2026.
Thank you, Director Buckley. Anyone to move we accept the recommendation? Councillor Byrne, Councillor Smith, Councillor Byrne.
Councillor Buckley, thank you for this. If we adopt this policy tonight, will it result in any significant increase to budget allocations moving forward compared to 25-26 budgets?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. The difference in budget adopted from the 25-26 to the 26-27 is around about $1,500. It's just a mild increase due to the increased costs and needs of the reserves. Yeah, exactly. And you know, in addition to that, it's created a transparent process for acquittal, which we didn't have previously.
Okay. Councillor Smith? Any other councillors wish to speak on the motion? No. Okay, taking it to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll say that's carried. Director Buckley, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Likewise.
We'll move on to 8.3.1. Let's catch up with this. Which is the draft customer charter for community engagement. And this time we move to Director Cook.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Item 8.3.1 relates to our draft customer charter for community engagement. The purpose of this report is to present the draft Alpine Shire Council customer charter to be placed on public exhibition to obtain community feedback for review and consideration for final charter development. A customer charter is a foundational document that outlines Council's commitment to delivering high-quality service to its customers. It details what customers can expect from Council and how the organisation will respond to their customer service needs. The Council plan establishes the strategic direction and priorities for the organisation over a 4-year period. Under Objective 1, being the customer-focused Alpine, Council is committed to continuing to build a customer-first culture supported by robust systems and processes. A key initiative in our Council plan is the delivery of a public-facing Alpine Shire Council customer charter that clearly defines our commitment to customer service, including response times and expectations for both Council and customers. The draft customer charter is complementary to Council's current complaints policy and clearly articulates the level of service Council will deliver. It also establishes benchmarks against which performance can be measured and reported, providing greater transparency, accountability and consistency across our customer interactions. It should be noted that Council officers endeavour to address every submitted service request in a timely manner, aiming to achieve immediate response time to as many as possible. And with the majority of customer contact, this is resolved at this first point of contact. For more complex inquiries, the draft customer charter proposes a maximum timeframe of 10 business days for a personalised response to be provided to the customer, including advice on the next steps with their inquiry or their service request, where the matter cannot be resolved in that timeframe. The proposed 10 business day response timeframe reflects the broad and often complex range of inquiries received by Council across all service areas. Customer requests can significantly vary in nature, from straightforward inquiries requiring limited investigation through to multifaceted matters involving legislative interpretation, technical investigation and assessment, a search of historical records, service coordination, consultation with multiple business units, or engagement with external stakeholders and authorities. We are seeking Council's endorsement to place our draft customer charter on out for community engagement. All feedback received through this process will be considered and the final customer charter will be presented to a future Council meeting for consideration by Council. The recommendation is that Council endorses the draft customer charter to be placed on public exhibition for a period of 6 weeks and in accordance with our community engagement policy, invites public submissions regarding the draft charter and notes that those submissions will be considered and a final customer charter presented to Council at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cook. Councillors move to accept the recommendation. Looking for a councillor to move. Councillor Anderson, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Anderson.
I'll just note that there's, it's not just a simple task as writing customer charter. I know there's been a lot of work going to behind the scenes with management and staff alike. I'd be interested to see if the work we've done hits the mark with community sentiment. We aim to get this charter done earlier. What was the hold up and why did it take so long?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. You're correct. The provision of a customer charter was a year 1 action in our Council Plan Action Plan, and we are now into the first quarter of year 2. We have undertaken a significant amount of internal engagement prior to presenting the draft for community engagement. We wanted to ensure that we have supportive systems and training available for our staff so that we can work through the implications of meeting the requirements of the Charter. We recognise that meeting the Charter can be challenging in some areas, and we're on a continuous improvement journey. So we appreciate feedback and we respect the feedback we receive, and we continue to try to improve and meet the requirements of the Charter.
Just to repeat again, how can people in the community have their say on this draft?
So the draft charter will be promoted via the usual engagement means. Our comms team will put some communication out into the community about the charter. It will be on our Alpine Engage page. It's also available in a hard copy from our libraries or our service centre should you wish to look at a hard copy and provide feedback that way.
Thank you.
Councillor Byrne? No, nothing to add. Any other councillors need to speak on the motion? No. On the recommendation? Okay, we'll take this to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, we'll move on to the next report for Director Cook, 8.3.2, P2024.054, 35 and 37 to 41 Delaney Avenue, Bright.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. This report relates to a planning permit application for P2024.054. The proposal is for 35 and 37 to 41 Delaney Avenue, Bright, which is for a 15-lot subdivision, the construction of 12 dwellings, alteration of existing vehicle access to a road in a Transport Zone 2, and removal of a carriageway easement. The application was advertised in accordance with Section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. 9 objections were received. The key issues raised in those objections are summarised in the report, and a response to each of those objections is provided in the published report. It should be noted, however, that recent amendments to Clause 55 of all Victorian planning schemes that occurred in 2025 included the introduction of a townhouse and low-rise code and associated deemed to comply assessment pathways. These have materially altered third-party review rights for qualifying residential development across the state. This being the case, many of the design elements that are deemed to comply with the standards are not actually open to further review from Council. Referrals for this application were undertaken, and a summary of those referrals and the consents and the provisions associated with those consents are detailed in the table on page 42 of your agenda. In addition, a detailed planning assessment has been undertaken and is documented across multiple pages of your agenda report. The report recommends that the application is approved, as the application is considered to be consistent with the Alpine Planning Scheme and should be approved for the following reasons. 1, subject to minor alterations to be included on any permit issued, the proposal demonstrates compliance with the provisions of Clause 55, which operates as the townhouse and low-rise code for applications for 2 or more dwellings on a lot. The proposal demonstrates compliance with the provisions of Clause 56 for the subdivision of residential land. The proposal will require bushfire protection measures with risk to life and property reduced to an acceptable level in accordance with CFA conditions. The proposal provides additional housing opportunity in a location with convenient access to existing infrastructure and a range of community facilities, and the proposal achieves an acceptable and orderly planning outcome and is supported by the relevant provisions of the Alpine Planning Scheme. The recommendation is in your report, and the recommendation is to approve the proposal. Subject to the detail in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cook. Councillors, to move and accept the recommendation. Councillor Anderson, seconded. Councillor Smith, Councillor Anderson. Nothing to add. Councillor Smith.
No, I noted on this one there was a couple of, from the original application, there was a couple of amendments, but from my observations, it looks a pretty a good facility. It's been redone. It was originally I think it was 16 or something lots, but it has been amended, and from what we see here, it looks like a yeah, it's a good application. I think it meets, it'll be good for extra housing. Not that we can control whether that be used as investment or owner-occupied, which is something that's up to the owner to decide, I suppose. But it's good that there's something moving forward, some development. I think it's great. So, well done.
Any other councillors? I'd also like to agree with Councillor Smith. Having seen the original proposal, I'd like to congratulate the proponent on changing and altering the proposal, because it certainly does appear much more appropriate now. So we'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Just give me a moment. Eight 8.3.3 Instruments of Appointment and Authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987. Director Cook.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. This report relates to the instruments of appointment and authorisation for council. These are an important means of council ensuring that its officers are appropriately authorised under the relevant acts that council administers. This report's being presented to authorise one acting role while recruitment for permanent appointment to that role is underway. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cook. Councillors to move? Anderson, Byrne. Councillor Anderson? No. Nothing. Councillor Byrne?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Anyone else need to speak? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Informal meetings of councillors, section 9.
It was not.
Sorry, I missed one.
Yeah, something missing, but.
My apologies, I've got an old version of the agenda. 3.4, Microsoft Cloud Services Procurement. Director Cook.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. And if I may, can I just make one slight clarification on 8.3.3? I did state that the role's being presented to authorise an acting role while recruitment for that role is being undertaken. That is incorrect. It's recruitment for another role. It's a backfilling arrangement. But thank you. 8.3.4 Microsoft Cloud Services Procurement. The purpose of this report is to recommend approval for Council to enter into a 3-year contract for Microsoft Cloud Services as part of a transition we're undertaking from a 12-month service provider procurement cycle to reduce the impact of annual Microsoft price increases and to provide greater cost certainty for Council. Microsoft 365 licensing is a critical service supporting Council's operations and broader ICT environment. To ensure value for money and to test the market, Council undertook a competitive quotation process through an approved collaborative procurement arrangement. However, following discussions with the incumbent provider, Council was able to secure discounted pricing and an opportunity to fix some eligible licence pricing for a 3-year term. Entering into a 3-year agreement will provide greater budget certainty for Council, reduce Council's exposure to future Microsoft price increases, and is expected to deliver savings over the term of the contract when compared with annual renewals. The proposed contract value of $315,402, exclusive of GST, together with provisions for fluctuation in licence and storage requirements, provides represents a financially responsible approach to managing Council's Microsoft licensing requirements. The recommendation is that Council approves award of a 3-year contract, and that we note that there may be additional potential costs associated with the yearly licence and data storage fluctuations that may impact the purchase order put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cook. Councillors move to accept. Councillor Anderson, Councillor Ronco, Councillor Anderson. Nothing. Councillor Ronco. Okay. Anyone else need to speak on the motion? No. Okay, take it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Informal meetings of councillors, section 9. Sorry?
No recommendation. That's,
All right. The recommendation is that the summary of informed meetings of councillors for July and August 2026 be received. Meetings on the 28th of July, a briefing session, the 11th of August, a briefing session, the 18th of August, a briefing session. Move, Councillor Ronco, seconded Councillor Anderson. Councillor Ronco, nothing? No. All those in favour? 5, carried. Presentation of reports by delegates. Councillor Ronco.
Thank you, Chris. Yes. Yep, on Thursday, 6th of August 2026, planned online meeting of the Alpine Resilience Partnership was scheduled, but unfortunately it was cancelled. This meeting has been rescheduled on this Thursday, 27th of August 2026 from 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Mount Beauty Neighbourhood Centre. So I will keep you informed for the result of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports to be presented? No. Moving on to general business. And Councillor Ronco wanted to speak on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just I wanted to remind our community that, yep, already 1 year passed and we know what the drama happened last year in the Alpine Shire. And I wanted to say that tomorrow we have a commemorative day at the Bright Police Station. So, yep, it's important, I think, for our community to be back together and to move on, but to also recognize what's happening. So, yep, I invite people, if they want to participate, to come forward. So, yep, so it's tomorrow from 10 a.m. at the Bright Police Station. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Any other general business? I don't believe. Number 12, motions for which notice has previously been given. There is none. Reception and reading of petitions, again, none. Number 14, documents for signing and sealing. The recommendation that the following document be signed and sealed: Instruments of Appointment and Authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987, Strategic Planning Coordinator acting. And this is the person that Director Cook was referring to. We move the motion that Councillor Byrne, Councillor Ronco, and Councillor Byrne? No. Councillor Ronco? No. Anyone else need to speak on the motion? No. Take it to the vote. Confidential reports? No. Nothing else? We can close the meeting at 6:37. Thank you for your attendance.